Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Community Board's Scrutiny Board. I'm Councillor Paul Pegg. I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. I'm going to hand over to Dominic and to take a roll call. Thank you. Over to you, Dominic.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dominic Monaghan. I'm the Democratic Services Officer for this meeting. With me today from Democratic Services, we have Lindsay Stevens and Stephen Mason. The councillors on the call tonight are Councillor Nawaz, Councillor Testro, Councillor Pearce, Councillor Hudson, and the Chair, Councillor Paul Pegg. And then the other officers on the call today are Claire Davenport, Duncan Cowie, Mike Brown, Owen Swift, and Stella Burks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. To start off, then, do we have any apologies?
No apologies, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any late items to be introduced? I certainly don't have any, and I've not been notified of any, so I take it that we don't. Can I then move to declarations of interest? Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Can we move on then to the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of September? Starting with page 1 for accuracy. Everybody happy with page 1? Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. And finally, page 6. Everybody happy with those?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll propose.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Moving on then to the update on the football or development of football. Is that you, Claire?
Hi, thank you, Chair. We're going to hand over to our colleagues who have pulled a presentation together for this evening. The presentation will be put onto screen, so if we just allow the officers time to be able to load that, that would be helpful, please, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, apologies. For some reason, it's not letting me upload the slide deck. Do I need to have control of the meeting?
I'm just going to change you to a presenter, Owen.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dominic.
Right, that should work now. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Great. If everyone can just let me know when that appears, that'd be great.
Not yet. Technology good.
There we are. How's that?
There we go. That's better.
Perfect.
I'll just introduce it, Chair. This reports and presentation are to provide an update on the developments of football in Derby. It's to report on the current football initiatives in the city. So we're going to hand over to Owen Swift, and he'll introduce himself first, and then he'll take you through some of the highlights of this particular topic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Claire, for the introduction. Yeah, so I'm Owen Swift. I'm the Physical Activity and Sport Manager of the City Council, sitting in Parks and Active Living within Leisure, Culture and Tourism. So I'm just going to provide an overview, really, of some of the work that we are involved in as a department and as an authority, really, supporting the development of football in the city. I suppose the development of sport and physical activity per se, including football, is framed really within the policy context of what we have at the City Council, and that all comes under Move More Derby, which is our physical activity and sport strategy. So this encompasses all of those, and anything to do with physical activity and sport, all those barriers and enablers to people being physically active and what that actually means for the residents of Derby. So our work around football football and football development, as with many other sports, is wrapped up within the context of this. And so from a policy perspective, this is what really drives our focus and our work, especially around thinking around the role that sport, physical activity can play, and football within that to improve physical and mental health and well-being, the role that it can play within creating cohesive communities, pulling people together, those wider social outcomes and social benefits that we know physical activity and sport has, and the life chances that it can create for individuals, for groups, be that as a participant, as a volunteer, as a coach, or even through to as a spectator of the sport as well, and the value that brings to the city and the sense of identity it brings to the city as well. In addition to Move More Derby, the physical activity and sport strategy, we have the Derby City playing pitch strategy, which is essentially a supply and demand, or strategic supply and demand analysis of all outdoor sports facility provision. So things like playing pitches, cricket pitches, football pitches, through to things like multi-use games areas that you would see on our parks. Now, the playing pitch strategy is a really important document because that allows us to identify where we have a strategic need or strategic either oversupply or undersupply of certain types of facilities that will support, maintain and enhance the places and the facilities where people in Derby can play those sports, both from a formal competitive perspective as well as a recreational perspective. And so it's a really useful tool to identify where we currently are as a city with our playing stock, and what the quality of that is, and then that starts to give us a roadmap to what work we need to be doing to either support the enhancement or maintenance of facilities, or actually where we need to be thinking about strategically where do we need more facilities, because we've identified there may be a strategic shortfall. And this document goes forward to 10 years, so it'll take us to 2028, so it models the projections around strategic needs analysis up to 2028 as well. And so that those two policy documents really help frame the role that we play within sport and the sport of football in the city. Just as a background, really, and just a bit of baseline context, football participation trends in the city of Derby over the last 4 years, really, and these are what they are. So this is measured through Sport England's active lives data. There's a gap there in the data in the orange line you'll see at the bottom, but that's where Sport England, we changed from using what was called active people survey, that evolved into active lives survey. So just for that one period there was just a sample missing. However, if you look at the overall balance of what we have there, we have a green line which shows in the past year how many of our residents in Derby, 16 plus, so this is adults 16 plus, not children or young people. The green line's those that did not participate in football within that calendar year, and the orange line is those that did. So we've probably got roughly around I'd say probably around 10% do and 90% don't, and that's not no different really to what the football participation trends are nationally, where we're seeing probably about 10% of the population did do some form of football activity in the last year, and 90% didn't. And when I say football participation, that's not just football participation in terms of competitive leagues or game structures. That's any form of football. So that could be recreational football that takes place in a park, that could be or a multi-use games area, that could be initiatives like walking football, as well as what you would traditionally look at through your clubs and your league structures like your Sunday league football, etc. This encompasses all of those, plus the small-sided, five-a-side, etc. And so it's been pretty consistent, really, both in Derby and nationally as a trend. I suppose where there has been some significant changes is probably more around how people are playing football. So there has been a bit of a drop in the formal 11-a-side game. But that sort of participation, whilst there's been a drop off there, it has picked up in those other areas. So that small sided game, like the 5-a-sides, the 6-a-sides, and within the women's and girls game as well. So whilst participation has remained relatively static, within those figures, there has been some fluctuation just in terms of how people are consuming the game, if you like, or how people are participating. It's not just your traditional Sunday league 11-a-side. There's very, very many different forms of football now, which will probably be a bit more accessible and fit into people's lives a bit more than the typical 11-a-side game. In terms of what drives the work within the policy context of what we do with the City Council and with our partners across the city, it focuses really on 3 areas. One is around place, so the places and spaces and facilities that are there for people to play football, and that's everything from the formal game through to that recreational game. So that's just some individuals that may just want to take a ball to a park, for example, and just have a kick around with some friends, through to that 11-side competition. And the people, of course, so I mentioned previously that whilst there's been relatively static rates of participation, within those numbers they have fluctuated. And I suppose some of the real focused work that's gone in about that is with the traditional game, to some degree, it does take care of itself and it's maintained really, really well. But I suppose with working with our partners, what we also try to do is aim to look at where we have underrepresentation within those figures. So that could be levels of disability football, for example, or women's and girls. As I mentioned before, that's where we've seen probably large growth of the game, focusing on some of our underrepresented groups playing the game. So that's what we mean by people. And then partnerships. I suppose everything that we do at the City Council is working in partnership with the clubs, the groups, the organisations to help support the development of football through all its various aspects, including the facilities as well as the programmes to support people to be able to engage with the game. Just coming now onto some of the key areas of focus that we are working on within the city. There's 4 things I just really wanted to identify as probably the key priority projects. So we've worked with the Football Foundation, the County FA, Derbyshire County Football Association in the development of a local football facilities plan. Now, the local football facilities plan were a national programme led by the Football Foundation to try and have a strategic plan around what facilities for football are needed within local authority areas, and to have one for every single local authority. And as of quite recently, only a couple of months ago, over the last 2 years, the Football Foundation have worked closely with the FA and a consultancy called KKP to actually ensure that every local authority now has a local football facilities plan. So the local football facilities plan really is a bit of a roadmap for what that means for Derby in terms of where our priorities are for football, and to help support the growth of the game in all its various aspects, from that traditional club competition 11-a-side game through to down to the youth ages, but also thinking around what are our facilities that are in place to allow for those informal recreation forms of the game. Again, be them on park multi-use games areas through to 5-a-side complexes, those types of things. And that's really important, because what that plan then allows us to do is have a list of priority projects that have been identified through the partners and the stakeholders in the city, including the City Council, to really understand where facilities are needed, what those facilities are, and how they would potentially be funded. So the local football facilities plan then starts to guide and steer the Football Foundation's investments into Derby City, into facilities. That's not to say that that is a fixed plan. The plans are reviewed on an annual basis based on what developments may have taken place locally, where there may be greater demand on certain aspects of the game. But again, it's a plan that allows us to focus and use the Football Foundation as an opportunity to pull in resource to help fund those facilities. A great example of that is the next one, which is around the grass improvement programme. So one of the clear objectives and the actions within our local playing pitch strategies around improving the quality of some of our grass stock. Now, Derby City Council obviously has a significant role to play within I suppose, facilitating, enabling the game of football locally, especially through the grass stock and through the grass pitches that we have in the city on our public parks and open space that we manage and maintain, as well as some of those that we have with some of our football clubs on a license agreement where they take some of the management and maintenance of those facilities as well. So the Grass Improvement Pitch Programme was a Football Foundation funded programme, and what that allowed us to do was we came together with Derbyshire County FA and a number of the leagues based down at the racecourse, and the racecourse we used as the first pilot site to do this, to have an enhanced maintenance regime for those grass pitches. So whilst the grass pitches are maintained by our Street Pride department internal at the council, this extra work is done through a consultancy that we're working with, funded through the Football Foundation with a small investment from the local authority, to add an additional level of improvement to those works. So that could be things like the scarifying or the weeding that goes onto the pitch, as well as helping with things like the drainage. And so that programme started this year, and it's quite fortuitously as well, I suppose, with the lockdowns that we've had, that's actually not been that much competitive football that's taken place on those pitches. So those pitches have really seen the benefit from that enhanced pitch improvement, and the football provision and the games that have taken place on the racecourse especially, we've had great feedback and compliments from the leagues and the clubs that have been playing down there around the vast improvement in the pitches down at the racecourse. And I think that's really a really important thing to highlight, really, especially considering the previous season when we had such awful weather really throughout the entire season with the flooding and etc. And I think there was some teams probably didn't even play 10 fixtures throughout the year, but actually what that allows to do is to rest those pitches and benefit from the enhanced maintenance programme, and that will pay dividends for us in terms of a higher quality spec of pitch, but also support the maintenance of them moving forward as well. And that programme's in place for the next 4 years as well. So we have funding committed from the Football Foundation. Derbyshire County FA are also supporting that through funding contribution, as are the leagues and the junior mini leagues down at the racecourse, which again, I think the commitment from all those partners involved in wanting to develop the pitches down at the racecourse, I think again just speaks volumes of the strength of the collaboration and the partnership in the city to enable us to do that, and actually making that financial commitment to do that as well. It's not just on the local authority to do that, so that's a real positive. Aside from the facilities, another initiative that we have been working on with the partners in the city is a programme called Active Through Football. Now, this is a recent programme where we have just, as a consortium of partners led by Community Action Derby, just submitted a stage 1 application to the Football Foundation to this programme. So this programme is all about increasing physical activity levels, and creating behaviour change around physical activity in a place-based approach. So thinking around a certain place within the city, what does that mean, and how do we use football and physical activity to increase activity levels within that place? But rather than a revenue programme going into there, delivering some activities and disappearing, it's around working with the community that's already there, understanding the strengths that are there, and working with those strengths and building upon those, and as partners supporting and enabling some change to take place. The submission date for that was last week. In total, there's £10 million to be invested in 15 places over the next 5 years. So we're hoping we will find out early to mid-December whether we've been successful in moving to stage 2. But I think as a consortium of partners in the city, including the County FA, Derby County Community Trust, Community Action Derby, we feel we've got a really strong submission on there, basing that on some of the successful work we've already been doing around physical activity, behaviour change, and taking place-based approaches to those. So that's a real positive. So we'll be able to keep the board informed if and when we hear about the next phases on that. And finally, the last programme that we're working on, again, this is back to facilities, but this is also taking that place-based approach that I've just been talking about through active football, is Derby Parklife. So Derby Parklife, or Parklife should I say, is a national programme, again, led by the Football Foundation, funded through Sport England, the FA and the Premier League. And this is all about delivering and developing sustainable football hubs. So recognising that there's been to look at different operating models really for the game at a local level, recognising that there's circumstances in areas sometimes where there's significant lack of match play due to deterioration of grass pitches, and the idea is to build a sustainable hub where you would have multiple 3G pitches at a site, a bit similar down to what's at the race course now. There's one there, but the idea is to actually have multiple pitches, anything between 2 to 4 pitches on a site. And the idea is that you would eventually move a lot of your junior type football to playing on 3G. And what that allows to do is, one, protect the grass pitches because there's not as much wear and tear going on there. It means there's less lack of fixtures because the conditions aren't getting waterlogged, and it means that the facilities themselves can operate or try and operate in a sustainable way through the income that's generated through the hire of those pitches. But one of the key things around Derby Parklife as well is that whilst you can generate income from the hire of those pitches, that any income that is then generated over and above the operating cost is reinvested back into grassroots football. And that's one of the core principles around Parklife really, where if the income is generated over and above what it costs to run the facilities, that investment is back into grassroots football, but the local partners or the local partnership decide where that reinvestment needs to go. So for example, if that was to look at doing further grass pitch maintenance works down at Alveston Park or Sinfin Park, well, that's where that would be spent, and that again, that would be determined by the local football partnership. Again, as this is a Football Foundation programme, it's funded partly by the Football Foundation. So the Football Foundation contributes a minimum of 60% to all the costs of this project. So we've been on this journey for a couple of years now to look at the feasibility of this approach and this model within Derby City. We were successful in reaching stage 1 of the bid of the funding, and had some funding to develop the stage 1 feasibility reports to look at what some of the outline designs or capital costs would be for this type of facility model within Derby. From there, we were then successful in the stage 2 award to do the next stages of feasibility to again take this project forward to identify what a total project cost would then be. At this moment in time, we are still awaiting to start that second stage of feasibility, but what we will then be able to do is at the end of that stage we will have a cost estimated or a capital cost estimate of what that development would cost again, and then what we would then be able to do is go to the Football Foundation to seek the 60% contribution towards the build. And then that's where we'd also then be looking internally as a decision for the local authority to identify where that the 40% contribution would come from that would be needed to complete the programme. So again, we are just at that feasibility stage, and hopefully after stage 2 feasibility we'll be able to explore the next steps internally with the council to hopefully deliver this Parklife programme in Derby City. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions if the committee have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Does anybody have any questions? No.
Go for it. I'll go.
Go on. Go. Okay, go first.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, how many playing pitches do you have in Derby?
I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head, but I can certainly go back to our playing pitch strategy. We have a lot. We've got quite a lot ourselves that we manage and maintain as a local authority. But the playing pitch assessment that we have done covers all playing pitches. So that's everything on school sites, our parks and open space, through to the private ones as well. So that's including everything like down at Pride Park and Mickleover Sports. But I can certainly get a list and send that through to you.
And why isn't the cricket given the same priority as football?
I think cricket. Sorry, could you mind just in what context do you mean? Isn't
there's not enough cricket pitches in the whole of Derby City. There's more football pitches.
Yeah.
And how come there's not enough cricket pitches?
Yeah, well, based on the playing pitch strategy and the demand modelling that we have on there, we do have enough. We do have enough cricket pitches. However, that has subsequently changed due to recent developments that we are aware of, and we are working with the Derbyshire Cricket Foundation on, where some clubs have been given notice of facilities that they're currently using. I suppose there's more football pitches, number one, because more people play the game of football as opposed to cricket. But just as the developments that we do with football that I've just been through there in terms of some of the participation programs as well as some of the facility programs, we are doing the same thing for cricket, but this was a presentation around football and not cricket. But I'm more than happy to try and pull that one together for you in terms of cricket. We are, for example, recently reinstated the cricket facilities down at Parker's Piece that were taken out of use because of our City Hour River project, and we've currently got an expression of interest process going on there where there is the cricket pavilion that is being redeveloped. The build will be completed for that in the new year, as well as a new pitch maintained where there's new drainage gone in there and a new wicket being done, and that is being put out there for cricket clubs to have the opportunity to potentially have that on a lease so they can take over the site and work with us collaboratively to develop the site for cricket. So I suppose there are less cricket pitches based on our strategic needs assessment back in 2018 that we did with the national governing bodies and all of the clubs. We did identify that we do have sufficient cricket pitches. However, we are aware that has now changed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just come in a second?
Yes, of course you can.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. First of all, thanks for a brilliant update. And if you could please pass on our regards to the Parks Department, because as you know, after last year's weather, they were in a treacherous condition at no fault of them, but it looks like they've clawed their way back. And I know it sounds like, but the COVID has probably done us a favour in the pitches because they've given them a chance to breathe a bit of life into them. Somebody who's involved heavily with grassroots football, I see it on a week-to-week basis, but yeah, they're in fantastic condition, and long may they continue. So yeah, if you could just pass on my regards, saying thank you and keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got a question. I thought that 3Gs were being phased out and would bring the FA wanted 4G pitches in preference to 3Gs now.
I think it just depends on the level, really, councillors. So where they are used at higher levels of the pyramid, they would have a more superior quality to them. But yeah, the 3Gs and the 4Gs, it's more around the tiering system of what they are played on. But all of the pitches that we are looking to put into place, they're all through the Football Foundation spec. So if that does change, then they will be the ones that we will be going with. But ultimately, we are dictated to by the FA and the Football Foundation around which ones will be going in there.
Okay, well, that's fine. And the other question I have, last season, there was quite a lot of clubs that hadn't got a football pitch and they were crying out. Has this been resolved now? Is it going to be resolved? Or are we looking into it? So I was consistently getting calls about using Knightsbridge and so from clubs all over the city. So I was just wondering if we've done anything further to look at opening up more of the pitches. Because we did close, especially with all the junior teams now playing on the racecourse, we've lost all those senior pitches down there. So are we moving any further forward to put additional adult pitches in, if you like, 11-a-side pitches?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of any specific shortages at this moment in time. I think what tends to happen is ahead of the season starting, teams will be seeking to confirm the utilisation of the pitch. So some of those will be shared pitches on like the local authority sites, and some of those will be on school sites. And I think sometimes, especially as the season's coming towards start, when clubs have to register, sometimes there's a bit of panic to try and get a bit of a pitch. But yeah, there's from my understanding, there isn't a shortfall, or teams haven't gone without pitches at this moment in time. Yes, we do have central venue leagues, especially for the junior games and things like down at the racecourse, etc. And that's a real positive, and I suppose that's where something like Derby Parklife or the Parklife scheme could really help and support that. but we are also looking at other options across the city as well, and working with some of those clubs to look at other sites that clubs may want to be looking at, because a lot of clubs, rightly or wrongly, they prefer to have their own facilities that they can use and train, and I suppose they take a bit of ownership on with that. We've got the great examples of that, like Chellaston AFC or Field Lane, where they've got a license agreement or a lease in some cases on a building, and they manage and maintain them on our behalf, and they've really taken those sites on and developed them. So where clubs come forward as well looking at that, we do have those conversations and seek to work with those clubs as much as possible to think about sites that would be appropriate for them, and actually is that something that they could take on moving forward. But in terms of this sort of hiring of pitches, I suppose, and especially on the local authority ones, as I say, I'm not aware that there's any significant shortfalls. As I say, we do get some at the start of the season, but I think they usually tend to sort themselves out really after a couple of weeks of just administration and sorting the pitches out.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Thank you. Anybody got any further questions? No? Okay. In that case, Owen, thank you very much indeed. It was a good presentation. It's great to understand what's actually going on with especially with the football and that. And one final question: Community Action Derby. How are they going to be? How are they involved in the actual bid for the £10 million? How have they become involved in that, as not being a sports-minded organisation, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. No, yes, it's a really important question. So they become involved because this program, this Active Through Football program, is very, very different really to what the Football Foundation and the FA have previously done, in terms of and the Football Foundation and the FA themselves will say they have tended to work with their traditional structures, their leagues, their clubs, the football providers. But actually, when we're wanting to try and understand the role of football and physical activity within communities and probably reach those people that aren't playing the game now, well, actually, in most cases, we probably don't really want to be working with the traditional game because they're the ones that are catering for the traditional game. We need to understand a different route through to people that aren't actually playing the game. And so Community Action Derby, they are the lead organisation of the consortium of partners of which the City Councils are part of, the County FA, Derby County Community Trust, etc., etc. So they're the lead organisation because as the infrastructure organisation for VCSE organisations in the city, well, their network of providers and groups are actually reaching people that probably wouldn't ordinarily participate in football. It's an easier route through. So what we can then do is with Community Action Derby, we're working through their network to understand the groups, clubs and organisations that are working with the target population really, or the target audience who aren't participating in football, and then we can start to broker that relationship with those individuals.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that. That's nice to know. On that note then, Owen, thank you very much indeed. I don't think there's any recommendations to come out of this other than the fact that if you can perhaps let the forward the slides on to everybody so they can actually have a look at them. I would appreciate that. And thank you very much. Feel free to leave the meeting if you so wish.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll share the slides with Dominic. Yeah, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Owen.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Right, now we're moving on then to Claire again. It's contributions of leisure, culture and tourism to the economic recovery.
Thank you, Chair. So again, we've produced a report to come to the board, but also officers have provided a presentation. So we're going to welcome officers to do that shortly, and they'll load up the presentation onto the screen before introducing themselves. The purpose of bringing the report and the presentation here is that culture, leisure and tourism is a key part of the city's infrastructure and really important to the future of the vision for our city. And the contributions of culture, of leisure and tourism cut across a number of themes, and we think it's a really important time in the history of Derby to use the initiatives that you're going to hear about today to help enable economic recovery and growth to be achieved, especially given the pandemic circumstances that we're in at the moment. So we've selected a few initiatives that are currently being worked on, and our officers would like to share those with the Scrutiny Board this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Chair.
Sorry about that. I do apologise. I couldn't unmute my phone, microphone. Thank you. Stella, it's you then, is it?
Yeah, not at all. It is, but Mike Brown is going to be sharing the presentation. So I am Stella Burks, I'm Visitor Services and Development Manager, and the presentation is going to be from myself and Mike Brown, who's our Arts Development Manager. We're both in Leisure, Culture and Tourism under Claire Davenport and in the Communities and Place Directorate. So when we've got the slide deck loaded, I will begin the presentation. So as Claire said, we're here to consider the role of leisure, culture and tourism to economic recovery. This is about the impact of COVID and obviously lockdown on the economy, whilst also addressing some of the pre-COVID issues in the city and in particular on the high street. And I think the technology's caught up with us. That's lovely. So it's true to say that many of the projects and work streams within the Leisure, Culture and Tourism Department contribute by definition to economic recovery because they offer life enhancing, enriching experiences that drive footfall into city businesses, into the city, and support jobs and the contribution to GVA. And that's true of the many large-scale capital projects in the pipeline at present, but also of the initiatives that we'll be focusing on in the presentation today. And these initiatives are about creating a unique, authentic and vibrant city to reflect the changes in consumer demand, whilst also overcoming the negative impacts caused by business closures, mainly on the back of the pandemic. And it's evident that the commercial sector isn't going to lead this because it requires a transition from an old model of consumption based heavily on retail generated profit to new types of business based on a different set of values. So it's important that there's intervention by the council in order to set the right direction. And this work is being seen as a really high priority by the Economic Recovery Task Force because that sees the council working with external stakeholders who are all invested in the recovery of our city. And all the partners see this kind of work as being absolutely critical to the future. So just to reiterate the context of this work, it's been long recognised that Derby's got an oversupply of retail and undersupply of office and residential space. And whilst that was already an issue in Derby, it's been significantly accelerated by the pandemic. Vacancy rates in June were 25%, and this is expected to rise as high as 50% by the end of the year. And those are pre-second lockdown figures. And we've got to consider what impact of the loss of trade over the last few weeks is going to have on that. And then there's also the fact that beyond the ground floor, there's an estimated 167,000 square foot of former office space that's currently and for some time has been empty. So these are the issues we need to address by recovery, and it won't be about a return to mass consumption driven retail profit. It'll be about using space and buildings differently and giving people different and more rewarding reasons to be in our city. Can I have the second slide, please, Mike? Or possibly not. There we go. So not all of the conditions that we've described are unique to Derby. The need for this transition in the high street is national, and it's been well documented. And these quotes that you see on the screen are from the Grimesy report, which some of you might be familiar with. And they're looking at the worst case scenario there in the images and considering how do we avoid the negative impact of a city dominated by windows of closed businesses. Our shop window should be our shop window for the whole city. And if that's not and what the pandemic has done is allowed space for us to pause and consider the long-term purpose of the city centre. It's an opportunity to plan for a transition into a new model based, as it says there in the quote, on quality of life, experiences, meaningful work and local trade. And it's essential that decisions made around the city centre are reflective of a younger demographic. We know that this younger audience demand a change from mass consumerism. Recognising their requirements for the city will be essential, not only in bringing forward the new propositions for the high street, but also in generating visitors and users, customers, and residents for the city centre living. So what are the interventions that will progress this transition then? Can I have the next slide, please, Mike? Well, we need to look to creativity to play a vital role in helping us to redefine our city. People like living in places with a thriving creative and cultural life. And culture and creativity help to define a sense of place and influence what people believe and say about our city. And the evidence shows that local creative economies benefit from an agglomeration or a cluster of creative enterprises and individuals that then feeds and inspires new creativity and delivering a vibrant city. So post-COVID, creativity and culture will be essential for transforming the city centre and providing new uses to vacant retail premises. And this will stimulate the creation of a vibrant community of independent businesses and a stronger destination offer. So combined with this approach, we need to invest in public realm interventions and enhancements, building on the success of Derby Marketplace. And that was a creative solution bringing together the hospitality and the cultural sectors in line with public demand for a safe, inspiring place to enjoy time with family or friends in line with government regs. And we need to take that approach to the rest of the city, including public art installations, pavement art, illuminated buildings, themed parklets, with an overall aim of animating the streets and building multiple points of interest. So just one example to quote, we're looking to put projections over Christmas and beyond on the Cathedral Tower, and that's a great case study of how we can work together in partnership, including the Council, the Cathedral Quarter Bid, our cultural partner Quad, all coming together to deliver a solution that will make Derby a more vibrant place and benefit all the partners. So alongside the public realm activity, we need to combine new uses for empty city centre property, and these are likely to include artistic, creative and cultural production, and that will bring more people into the city centre both for work and leisure. And these interventions aim to support the sustainability of the remaining retail activity with a more diverse city centre economy. So now I'd like to hand over to Mike Brown to tell you a little bit more about that part of the project.
That's great.
Okay, thank you, Star.
Okay, so hopefully, I'm trying to move the slideshow on. It seems to have frozen. So hopefully the slides moved on now. So just looking at why we're looking at creativity within regeneration. So creative industries are the fastest growing sector in the UK economy. Currently, or in 2018, they contributed 111 billion. And that's, put that into context, that's more than the automotive, aerospace, life sciences, oil and gas industries combined. So it's a massive growth area and a specialism for the UK. There's very much a shift amongst consumers away from mass consumption of generic items towards artisan, bespoke and handmade products. And Derby, as you know, is widely regarded as a city of innovation and making, home of the first factory. The opening of the new Museum of Making is going to be the embodiment of that. And the Museum of Making is going to, which is scheduled to open next year, is going to feature a fully equipped makerspace and also a co-working hub for creative businesses. In terms of creative approaches to regeneration, this was an approach that Hull took. In quite a few years ago, they had a development area that the developer pulled out of. And this was an area that was quite a rundown kind of industrial area in the city, and they took a creative-led approach to regeneration in that area. And in 2017, that won Best Street in the UK. And the transition has resulted in over £80 million worth of levered-in private sector investment and the creation of over 300 jobs. So that was very much about the local authority taking a very small-scale intervention in that area by encouraging meanwhile uses of creative businesses to try and stimulate a new type of use for the area and generate a new community that would be users of that. And that was also critical in the success of Hull being named City of Culture in 2018. So just talking about meanwhile use, I've just moved the slide on, so hopefully that's moved on for you as well. So meanwhile use refers to the temporary use of vacant buildings as a space to develop local projects until such time as that they can be brought back into full commercial use. However, with the decline in retail further accelerated through the pandemic, returning to the status quo is an unrealistic expectation. Within this context, meanwhile use creates opportunity to transition vacant city centre spaces into new types of use. So meanwhile uses can include pop-up shops, artist studios and exhibition spaces, business incubation units, spaces for cultural events and festivals, but also spaces for education, workshops and training. Temporary use of empty retail space has an aesthetic and positive impact on the high street, quickly bringing life and activity to an area. Well managed meanwhile can transform eyesores into prominent locations into assets that contribute to regeneration and vibrancy. This can be a catalyst for physical renewal, increasing interest in the area as part of a longer term development strategy, helping to build a vibrant community of independent businesses and a stronger destination offer. And that's exactly the model that Hull took with their Humber Street area. The approach will hopefully demonstrate to investors and asset owners that there are alternative functions and market opportunities for their buildings. Now, currently, the majority of the value on high street properties is in the ground floor, and as Stella alluded to, there's vast amounts of upper floor space that's currently empty. So through the meanwhile use, there's opportunity to actually place the value through the whole cross section of the building. So it's not just the ground floor, but bringing those upper floors back into uses, creative workspace and studios and so on, actually starts to build that community, brings more people who are going to be working back into the city centre. So prior to the pandemic, the council had engaged consultants to develop proposals for creative regeneration activity. The importance of this work has been increased with the accelerated decline of the high street. A detailed concept has now been developed addressing both the needs of the city centre and the needs of the artist and maker sectors. The working title for this is Derby City Makers. So just moving on again. So the Derby City Makers project is an initiative designed to stimulate new employment and business functions in Derby City Centre. It will focus on attracting the creative industries by generating opportunities for makers and artists, whilst also creating new workspaces and studios for the wider creative and digital industry sectors, spinning out new jobs and enterprises in empty or underused city centre buildings. This project will seek to establish new uses for multiple buildings. It will prioritise artistic, cultural and creative production as a broad scope of functions and activities that will bring people into the city centre for both work and leisure. This will complement and support the sustainability of the remaining retail activity within a more diverse city centre economy. Moving on again. So if you've got the slide up, hopefully you can see on the map on the left hand side, there's you've got the Museum of Making in the red circle at the top, and then this blue ribbon runs down Iron Gate, across the top of the marketplace, and then down into St James's Street. And you know, kind of St James's Street used to be the kind of finance district of the city where a lot of the building societies and the estate agents and so on were located. With those businesses closing, it's an area which has very much lost its identity and purpose, but actually it's one of the city's gems in terms of architecture. So it's an area that really does need to have a new purpose and new identity developed for it. So the idea of the City Maker is a trail or a ribbon would be developed which would link the Museum of Making to the St James's Street area, with this area running through Irongate and the top of the marketplace being a key area where we could have interventions and things happening along the lines of things that Stella's been describing around the public realm. So there will be a proactive approach to support the transition of retail spaces into new types of use. This will create artist studio and maker space in upper floors, potentially including some live workspaces, with ground floors providing exhibition and project space that can help animate the high street. A focus on training and skills at all levels will help people to establish sustainable businesses. A stronger peer group network will be created to provide mentoring, helping retain graduates and emerging practitioners in the city. Within this, meanwhile, use becomes incubation space, providing fledgling businesses and projects low risk, low cost opportunities to trial their ideas. With targeted business support, these can be helped to access funds, commercialise their ideas and develop viable business propositions. This creating a pipeline of tenants for city maker spaces, as well as the new market hall or independently within existing retail space in the city centre. A marketing and promotional umbrella will join up these multiple initiatives and interventions that attract creative businesses, activity and footfall into the city centre, and a unifying brand will project a creative identity for the city, generating a new sense of place. A curated approach to the city's cultural programme will amplify existing events and festivals, whilst adding new initiatives that showcase makers, artists and associated networks. Some of the key messages for this are that we're not kind of expecting retail to come back to fill void properties on the same scale as they existed previously. So it's about encouraging and supporting new types of businesses and economic activity that create an experience and repeat reasons for people to visit. It's essential that we support the sustainability of our existing cultural organisations within this. Their closure will impact on the credibility of what we are proposing. They're also absolutely critical as delivery partners within some of the activities that we're talking about. So without them in place, it would make it much harder for us to deliver the ambition. So just coming on a couple of final points. So Stella provided these quotes and I've lost track of where they came from, so I apologise for that. So it's kind of saying that the old model is broken, but an exciting new model is now ready to be developed and implemented by inspired local leaders. And unique places will emerge, embracing this new normal. So just the final slide then. The image within this is Humber Street as it is today. So this is the street I was talking about in Hull. You can see that there's a vibrant kind of pavement cafe community there, but that runs alongside the industrial buildings that you can see in the background, where you've got creative businesses operating, you've got venues, you've got exhibition spaces and so on. So it's created a really vibrant destination within Hull, and you can see the use of street art in that image as well to add colour and vibrancy to that area. So that's the context and the key areas that we wanted to share with you today. So we're open to answering any questions that you may have. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that, and Stella, good presentation. Has anybody got any questions at this point in time? Okay, well, I've got a couple. When are we going to start? Well, obviously, start looking at it. When will this start to take place and come into being? Well,
if I kick off with the public realm interventions, so obviously some of the work will take place over the Christmas period. Once we come out of lockdown, you'll start to see those projections that I mentioned on the cathedral side. But we've recognised, this isn't just about Christmas. This is about driving footfall into the city over the next year or more, and the projections will continue throughout the winter months. And at the same time, other things will start to appear. So we're looking at getting more lighting, festoons of lighting across the city streets, all the sort of things that we associate with vibrant, exciting cities. And we've got a lot to look forward to next year. As Mike referred to, we've got the opening of the Museum of Making, we've got the Ram Trail. So we're hoping to get a lot of these interventions to be able to complement some of those activities as well. So you'll see them happening throughout, from Christmas and throughout next year. There are complications with all of these things, as you would expect, and of course to do with the pop-up shops and an alternative retail space. Then obviously we've got to consider getting the landlords on side and getting the agencies on side. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, I think we're in conversation with commercial property agents, working very closely with the economic growth team on the development of the Meanwhile programme and also the Derby City Makers programme. And we've got a meeting tomorrow, first meeting of the refresh of the city centre master plan, and these initiatives are going to sit very much within there. So we're looking very proactively to try and get the Meanwhile use up and running as soon as possible. And in terms of the City Makers, we've got the feasibility study for that was completed at the end of October. So we're just kind of going through that now with colleagues and with the consultants in terms of what the first steps are in terms of developing and moving that initiative forward.
Okay, thank you. The one I've got is with all the lights and that, and I know it's going to be there's going to be questions asked from the environmentalists and that. What will be the impact of the additional lighting in the city streets on the environment, if any? So I know we're going to get asked that question when we start putting them up. It's inevitable.
Yeah, well, yeah, good point. The lighting is only one solution, and one of the others that I referred to was the introduction of parklets, which you might or might not be familiar with those. These are the pop-up parks which can be put in any part of the city, and a key part of those is to add greening to the city, so more trees. At the moment we don't have a huge number of trees in the city centre. We're going to be replacing some of the trees that were in the pots on St Peter's Street. So yes, there will be additional lighting, which is essential during winter months for safety, apart from anything else. It will add vibrancy, but it's one of a great number of measures that include more greening, environmental activity in the city as well.
Okay, well, thank you. And the final one from me is, even when I was a disability champion, this used to crop up all the time, and it's the A-boards, the unsightliness of the A-boards throughout the city, and the detrimental effect they have. I mean, you look at Sadlergate, and well, it's like a jigsaw trying to get around it with all the A-boards and that are out. Are we going to be doing anything towards trying to cut down on those to tidy the areas up and help, brighten everywhere up? Similar to one of the slides that you showed where we had the umbrellas, I could just see Sadlergate with something like that, and that. But then as it stands at the moment, it would be a bit of it would detract with all the A-boards and that are around the place.
I believe we have an A-board policy. That the businesses, I fully appreciate, do need extra support, but hopefully by these interventions we will increase footfall, and so hopefully the businesses won't quite feel the need in the same way to advertise their business by putting the A-boards out. But I think we've got to we've got to start using these interventions and see what effect it has on footfall and how otherwise we can support businesses so that they can recover and keep employing people.
Great, lovely, thank you. If anybody else got any questions?
Yes, Chair, if I may.
Yes, please, Councillor.
Thank you. Mike, just a quick question. How many shops in total have we got that are not in use within the city centre of Derby?
I think currently Thanks, Councillor. I think currently there's vacancy rates of around 30%, but I think we're expecting potentially that could rise as high as 50% by the end of the year. That's shops outside of the Into Centre, but we're working very closely with a commercial property agent who's kind of been tracking the trends in this, and has also been able to identify properties where the businesses aren't likely to renew their leases, which is why we've got quite a good kind of granular understanding of where key areas are that need interventions going forwards.
Thank you for that. I welcome that, because at the end, I think due to the circumstances we're in, the transition is going to take slightly longer than anticipated. So yeah, I suppose it is what it is, and we are where we are. But no, thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you for the presentations from the team again. Thank you, Claire, for organising everything. Really much appreciate it. In that case, then we'll move on. And thank you for attending. If you want to leave the meeting now, you can do. Feel free just to log out and go and watch your Coronation Street or whatever it is you want to do and enjoy it.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you. So moving on to item 7 on the agenda, which is the terms and reference. Anybody got anything they want to look at, bringing forward to the next meeting or anything? No? Nothing at all? Oh, that's all right then. Sorry.
The next meeting we have community safety priorities, food laws plan and various waste policies. The 3 items at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Dominic. If there's anything you want to add to that, we will feel free to let us know. Contact myself or Dominic.
Chair, can I just come in a second?
You certainly can, yeah.
Going back to the, I mean, this is something obviously that you could bring it back to the next meeting with the waste policy for next year. I had a quick question. I never got a chance to put it on to this meeting, but you know, obviously we've got the situation regarding the COVID-19 with all the refuse lorries. Yes. That are driving around the city of Derby with the vans in tow to pick up the extra passenger, obviously because they can't congregate in numbers in the truck. Could I get a costing for that at the next meeting to see what it actually costs us monthly? I think it's Arnold Clark that the council are using to see where we are with the costings of what it's costing them vehicles to follow the refuse lorries around. To see what it's costing us on a monthly basis, since when it was introduced, I think way back in March.
I can't see any problems with that. Is that all right, Dominic? Are you happy to put that question forward, please?
Yeah, I'll let the officers know, and then I'll ask them to either include that in one of the reports for the next meeting, or to send me the information to pass on to the board. If that's all right.
Can I just add something to that, Paul?
Yeah.
Do they have to have a minibus? Because sometimes you see there's only 2 people in the minibus, a driver and a passenger.
Well, yeah, that can be looked into as well. That will be all part and parcel of the programme that we're going to look at.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
If there's nothing else, then can I thank everybody for attending, and I'll see you in January. I hope you all have a good Christmas and you can enjoy it under the current circumstances. But thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Do appreciate it. Thanks for your input and everything else. But stay safe and have a good Christmas as best as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.